Hi Christine, this is Manny Marino from Minneapolis with Dowood Son. Here is your Cubs chair. So this was a fun chair to make, and the Cubs happen to have a special place in my heart because I grew up in West Michigan as a kid and I was a Cubs fan. Instead of Detroit, I rooted for the Cubs. So good memories and brings me back to my childhood. But here's your chair, and I will spend the next few minutes on this YouTube video talking to you about kind of the assembly process and how to put it together, and then I'll spend a few minutes at the end talking to you about the chair, the maintenance, and spa urethane and all that good stuff. So okay, so here is your Cubs chair. Right now, this morning I put on a spa urethane on the logo, and it's still a little sticky, wet to the touch. So I'm probably, just to be safe, gonna wait a few days to ship it because I want to make sure that it's completely dry before it gets sent out. And then in the morning I also want to put another coat, just one more coat of spa urethane to make it really shiny. But okay, so when you get your chair, it's gonna come in pieces, and I'll just walk over here and I'll kind of walk you through the first step. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to assemble the seat. So it's good. Your seat is actually the 1x4s and the 2x6s, so the big boards, right? And then there's also a 22-inch back brace that goes in between the two legs. And then you'll know which in order they go. Obviously, starting with your Contreras board, that's number 1, and I'll have them labeled like I did with this one. 1 through 7, and the board, as far as the 2x6s, I'll have it labeled right, so that way looking at the chair, right and left. Okay, so 1 through 7, once you get those in there, they just sit snug right on top of each other. And then this back brace is helpful just because they will fit perfectly all the way 1 through 7, all the way to the back. And then where number 7 ends, it's good, and then where this back brace is, there's going to be like a 1/2 inch, like a 1 inch gap, and that's by design so that way the back of the chair has a tail and that slips right in there. And you'll know because it'll line up with 2 pre-drilled holes in the back, which I'll demonstrate and show that to you on your chair. So again, 1 through 7, so step number 1 is putting this seat on a flat surface. Let me go back to your chair. So when you are attaching the seats, the screws, these are going to take the 2-inch screws that look like 2 inches, like that. And they will come with the drill bit. I promise these are torque bits. These are, they will not rust because they're coated and they're brown, and these are deck screws. So these are premium screws, and they look nice. When you're screwing them in with the torque bit that comes in the bag, just go flush to the top of the seat when you're doing them 1 through 7. Okay. Anyway, so once you get your seat, the second step is to get your front legs in. Again, I'll have them labeled underneath or on top, which was the right, looking at the chair, so right and left. The lag bolts are going to be 3.5 inches long, and when you put them in, it'll go lag bolt, then the washer always goes on the inside, lock nut, then nut. You are going to need a 9/16 ratchet, which is going to be very helpful. And when you're first putting in the legs, the front and back, make sure just to finger tight the bolts for now. So you got your seats, your front legs, right and left. Then the next step is to do your back legs. The back legs are easy to identify because they're going to have the slant on the back. And then this board, the back support 1x4, is the shortest one. It's 22 inches long. So when you're screwing those in, again, go flush to the top with the 2-inch screws, torque screws. And then one thing is, I will mark on the back of your chair where to line up the top of this board. So you don't want to go all the way to the top of the leg, because if you do, then this little bump right here will actually be taller when you're laying your arm on, and we don't want that because then it'll be a little bit crooked. So you get your front legs in. I'm going to go to the back and show you your seat, your front legs right and left, your back legs with the back support, right? That's this back here underneath the back, underneath this. And then these take 1 1/4 inch screws. So these are the smaller ones. I think there's going to be 11 or 12. I forgot. But one thing to be mindful of on these is only sink them not very deep, because we want to make sure that we're not puncturing the back side of the chair, right? So and then of course you're putting your back legs with lag bolts. Again, washer, lock nut, nut, finger tight those. And that's attached to the back brace, as I mentioned before. And then looking from the back, it's the right and left. And again, I'll have these marked underneath, so you make sure you're lining them right. And then one thing to point out is when you're slipping in the tail in this gap, I've marked, and it's probably hard to see in this video, where to line the seat, right? So it's perfectly centered, because that gives us enough room up on the top when we are putting our arms in. Then that's, oh yeah, so you slip it in. You slip in the back seat, which will be intact, right? So you don't have to put the back seat together. That's already done for you. Then screw in the back, and then you put in your back braces. Again, I'll have them labeled up and down, right and left, and there's 11 1 1/4 inch screws that go into here. And then the last thing that you're going to screw in is your arms. Start from the back and be very careful. I mean, these have been pre-drilled, so just go slow, because there's not a lot of space here, and we just want to make sure we're going slow to making sure we're not breaking it. Let me go to the front here a second. And then when you're putting in your top screws, right, again, these are going to be the 2-inch screws, and they're going to come with, and in the bag I'll put some sawdust and plugs, wood plugs. So very much like I did here, right? So actually, before I put these plugs in, I got a pinch of sawdust, and I filled it in, packed it in, and then I got a rubber mallet and pounded these in. So that's what that's going to look like. You do that last. So that's how you assemble the chair. So recapping very quickly, we're starting with the seats, the 2x6s, 1 through 7. Again, I'll have them numbered, labeled right, and 1 through 7. Then the second piece is putting in your front legs, right and left, your back legs along with the back brace, and then you slip in your back, your entire back, and then you put your back braces over those, and then your arms go on last, right? And then underneath, one thing I need to mention is there's going to be 6 screws that go in under the tail, so you snug those in. And then the last thing that you do is with your ratchet, which you need a 9/16 ratchet, you tighten your bolts. So that's how you put the chair together. Pretty basic, I mean, pretty easy, but if you have any questions, you can certainly call me, or we could FaceTime, we can go through that. As far as maintenance, over the paint, I used a spar urethane. This is what this looks like, and I used a crystal clear gloss. And then the entire chair is stained in a golden pecan, right? So the stain is going to last you for at least a couple of years, depending on how much sun you get. But you can always either sand the edges if you wanted, and then add another coat of stain. It's an oil-based stain. And it'll, protect and preserve the chair. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I make all my chairs out of redwood cedar, so you don't have to worry about, rot or the chairs absorbing water, because it won't. It's lightweight. It weighs about 37 pounds. And it's a fantastic chair. I think you'll like it. I think you'll appreciate the angle too, because I make all my chairs with more of an upright feel than a typical Adirondack, where it sits, kind of tips you back. So it's a good, comfortable chair. I know you'll enjoy it. Again, thank you so much for the business. I know I blazed through the assembly process, but if you follow those steps that I mentioned before in the video, I think you'll find that putting it together is not so bad. You follow me on Instagram, Facebook, my website, dowoodson.com. If you have any comments or questions or any feedback, feel free to share, pass along. I definitely want to make these videos. I mean, I personalize each and every one, but I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything super important or something basic that you're when you're on your end putting it together, that I may have missed or I wasn't clear on my direction. So I'd appreciate any feedback that you give me. I already mentioned that the paint or the spar urethane over the paint is a little bit wet still, so my apologies for the delay. It's just been so humid here, and I think that's why it's just taking forever. I have a fan going on it all day, and it's still, I mean, it's working, but not fast enough. So, all right, Kristine, well, here it is, and I will get this shipped out probably, what's today, Tuesday? Probably on Thursday, just to be safe. I want to make sure that it's completely dry before I put it in a box and ship it to you. I learned the hard way. I think the last chair I mailed to Indiana, I had spar urethaned it, thought it was dry, and then I put it in a box, and I used like wrapping paper, like really thick paper, and then when it got to the customer, it stuck to the urethane, and so she unfortunately had to sand it down, and it wasn't a, I mean, I want to make sure I avoid that, and that was probably because I didn't let it dry I just didn't let it dry enough, so I don't want that happening to your chair. Okay, I've talked a lot. I rambled a lot, most of it. So if you have any questions, again, call me, text me. I'll walk you through it. Feel free to share with your family, friends, and let them know where you got this chair. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye bye.